Hi there, this is Steve Spurrier. You can join University of Florida Hall of Famer Shane Matthews and also the two-time SEC Player of the Year every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, opinions, and some of the biggest names in sports. You can find him on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or you can watch him live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
Good morning. It's Friday, folks. It's Football Friday. We should have Fight Song Friday. I love me some college fight songs. It's Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Today's program, we got JC. We'll do some Peachland dental picks. I ain't picked a game right yet. And then we got Josh Newman. He's going to be joining us from the Salt Lake Tribune talking Utah Utes football. Let's go ahead and discuss everything that happened last night. I had a hard time sleeping, JC. You're on the Titan More hotline, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for putting me on the hotline. QB, you are a spectacular 0-7 getting the year started. I went 2-2. I really was pissed off at the way Purdue ended that game.
Well, I got to talk about that.
I know what you're going to say.
I am the biggest Jeff Brom guy because he dialed up plays like you wouldn't believe last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with about 6 minutes and 6:25 left in the game, they get the ball up 3.
3, yes.
All they have to do is get a couple first downs, and they did get one, but they didn't run the ball one time. They threw
not one.
7 straight passes, and they had trouble blocking Penn State's front. Well, having said that, they got one first down, so now it gets down to about 5 minutes. They punt it, and they stop Penn State. So Penn State has bad field position. They have 3 timeouts, about 2:45 left in the game. They punt it, and they still throw the ball every damn down.
And not only do they throw it every damn down, QB, they go to a first-round draft pick side in the guy named Joey Porter Jr., who could take any pass to the house. He threw one ball out to the flat that could have gone pick 6. It's Bill McCartney was a really good coach, and he won a national championship at Colorado. One of the things he said, and one of the things that he taught Rick Neuheisel and people like that, because I heard Rick say this, was that coaches' jobs sometimes are to not lose the game. Make sure that you don't lose the game. Scott Frost more or less lost the game for Nebraska with some silliness by trying to be too aggressive. This coach was doing things with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter that you might want to do with 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. And I was just like you, QB. I couldn't believe – Reggie Bush said it after the game. He said, dude, just – take some clock off. Take some time off the clock. Try it at least. Try to run the ball. Keep the clock running. And good for Penn State. They had a 7-play drive, something like that looked beautiful. Makes you wonder why they didn't go hurry up the whole game, actually. And they had no problem scoring there. And I agree with you. Their defensive front dominated that game. This is what Florida needs. They need somebody on the defensive front. They need somebody that looks like Penn State's defensive front to take control of that.
Here's the thing. Penn State players always look bigger than everybody else because they don't have any stripes and stuff on their uniforms. It just makes them look bigger. I swear it does, especially when they were all white.
But didn't they seem like, watching the first half of that game, QB, I was thinking, God, Penn State's boring.
Oh, they're horrible. They're horrible.
But they don't have to be. Today, that last drive they had when they basically hurried up the offense just a little bit was pretty good. Clifford didn't have his great game, but he looked good on that last drive. The other game that really upset me last night was the way JT Daniels' wide receivers just couldn't help him out much. I thought he played a pretty good game for a guy that hasn't played much. And West Virginia gave up 14 points in less than a minute to Pittsburgh. Credit to Pittsburgh's defense for winning that game. I was not thrilled with Keaton Slovis. He
only threw for like 350-something yards.
I know, QB, but for some reason I thought JT Daniels looked better. Now, maybe I was misreading all of this, but gosh, those West Virginia wide receivers did not do him any favors, dropping passes, and then, of course, the pick 6. So West Virginia looks better. Pittsburgh looks pretty good defensively. These were 2 good games, QB. You got to admit, that to start off the season last night, we got two good treats to watch, and I think it's going to continue this weekend, my man. It's going to be fun to watch. There are some really, really, I think, exciting games. We're going to pick some here in a few minutes.
No, it was phenomenal. It was Pitt hosts the Tennessee Volunteers next week, by the way.
What? They are?
Tennessee goes to Pittsburgh.
Oh, yes. Man, and now that is a must-see game. If you love football, college football,
there's no question. So a couple other things stood out to me.
Sure.
I don't know who coaches Florida International now, FIU. They win in overtime to Bryant, who is like a one quadruple A program.
It's Mike McIntyre, QB. A guy named Mike McIntyre. His first year's coach. That was a 1-11 team last year.
They're horrible. I mean, I'm not kidding you. Bryant is a glorified high school team.
Yeah.
So somehow they came back and won. I was watching Oklahoma State a little bit. They were up by like 30, and they win by 14. So they made a run. Tennessee looked very explosive. Now Ball State. I thought Ball State had their quarterback back, who was really good last year. They started a new guy.
Right.
But anyway, Missouri was okay. Louisiana Tech's not too bad. As you said, here was a game. I didn't watch any of it, but I saw the stats on it. And sometimes stats just blow my mind. So this New Mexico State team, who is coached by Jerry Kill, who coached at Minnesota at one time, had them rolling. He goes back to play to row the boaters.
He doesn't like to row the boater either.
So New Mexico State had 6 first downs for a total of 90 yards in the entire game. Minnesota had 31 first downs, 495 yards. I mean, that is just hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it. You know, it's just a dreadful mismatch of personnel and everything else. Listen, row the boater didn't really run it up, I think, as bad as he could have, but they don't. For some reason, Jerry Kill had a problem with row the boater when he left. And, Jerry Kill was the coach who had these seizures, and he wasn't allowed to coach in many games because of his seizures. He's back on the sideline now, so that's a victory in itself. But New Mexico State is a program that really doesn't have much to offer. I was not surprised by Tennessee that much, QB. I was not. I guess I was somewhat surprised by Missouri. And all the points they put up against a La Tech team that I thought was going to be a little bit more competitive. Tonight, I think that the game, Illinois and Indiana, will provide us a pretty good matchup in Big Ten. I like these early conference matches in the Big Ten for some reason. I don't know why I like it, but I do. And I thought Purdue and Penn State, was everything we thought it would be. I think tonight's game at Indiana could be interesting with Illinois. But QB, look, you can't just take your team out of the game. And I was just disappointed that Purdue lost that game because of the way they managed the last 4, 5, 6 minutes. It just made me a little disappointed.
Yeah. Emory Jones wins in his debut. Had a good game, actually. Played well against the what is Northern Arizona, the Lumberjacks or something?
Yeah,
like that?
they're one of those, and I think it was good to see Emory get a nice win for Herb Edwards. He's the coach now at Arizona State, was last year and has been, and I don't know. I mean, the Lumberjacks went 5-6 last season. They beat Arizona actually last season. That was a terrible team, but Arizona State gets that win. And we're off and running. QB, tomorrow night, this game with Utah, the Gators, the first time they played Utah was in 1977, QB. That's when the side walls of Florida Field, or Ben Hill Griffin Stadium now, were blue. Now they're, the side walls where they're orange, it says, home of the Gators and blah, blah, blah. They were blue, painted blue. I went to that game, and I knew nothing about Utah at the time. But that's the last time they came here. And Florida has won 32 straight home openers, QB. So the streak is on the line.
Yep. There ain't been many teams like Utah in that streak, though.
No.
That's the thing.
No,
There's been a bunch of Montana States. And
Miami came in here a couple times. Bernie.
I don't think Miami's in that 32 years, JC. Think about 32 years ago, I was playing.
It was in the 80s. Oh, 32 years?
Yes. That's
Well,
when I played. 19.
No, no, no.
You're going.
No, no.
You're going
I'm
back
not,
to the Oklahoma State game,
no, no,
1990.
no, QB. I'm not
Yes,
saying
I am.
30.
Yes.
No.
32 straight home openers.
Yeah.
32. And if you go to 1990 and 32 years later,
Okay.
it comes out to be 2022.
Okay, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And you do math for a living. Gene says on Facebook Live, JC's looking lean. Surprised he does not have a Pitt or Penn State hat on today.
No.
Any Tour 54 predictions? No, I don't give a damn about that tour.
Come on.
They can go, they're playing for some charity or whatever they're doing.
I couldn't tell you who that. I have no idea.
That was the wrong way to say that, but to hell with the Tour 54.
Well, I'm not even. That doesn't even enter
who even watching? Nobody's watching that. Nobody's going to go to that either.
No, I'm not a big fan. Yeah, I don't know. So how about some numbers here? Florida 7-4 straight up and 4-2 against the spread against the Pac-12. I bet you didn't know that. And let's see. The last time I guess Pac-12 opponent was 89 against Washington. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds about right. But none of your trends are going to matter for this game. You can throw the trends out.
No, I'm just throwing out some info. But no, none of the trends matter. None of this matters. Look, see the gator thing? See the little gator running there? Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
It's pretty
All right.
pretty cool.
Coy asked here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law, is 23 or 40 a good night passing? No, right? I don't know who went 23 or 40, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's talking about Daniels, but I don't think Daniels' numbers are maybe he isn't talking about Daniels, but let's just look at it this way. There's a stat where I think they ought to have a stat that does not penalize the quarterback's line when a wide receiver lets a ball go right through his hands and it gets taken to the house.
Well, you can't do that. I'm a quarterback. I agree with that. But so whenever they talk about an offensive line giving up this amount of sacks, okay?
Yeah.
Let's use Alabama, for example. Bryce Young was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in America last year. Was it the offensive line or was it Bryce Young holding the ball too long? Mm-hmm. You don't know. You see what I'm saying? So it is what it is. Okay. Chris says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law. Shane, have you seen the new Heisman commercial, Coach Spurrier? I have not.
Yeah, I have. I saw it last night. I think, he was basically telling Derrick Henry that picking up a car, it's repetitions, not just one time. And Derrick Henry picked up a car. Tim Tebow and Bryce Young walked into the Heisman mansion, and Tim Tebow looks like he's literally 2 times the size of Bryce Young, width-wise.
He is.
I know.
Bryce Young's like 5'10" and a half.
But not just 5'10" and a half. He's little.
He's about 180 pounds.
That's hard for me to believe that he weighs as much or more than you did when you played, and you were 4 inches taller.
Yeah, he does weigh more than when I played.
you were skinny.
John says, did y'all see the punter from South Carolina State who decided to take off and run for a first down? Well, he did, yeah. And then he was about to get, after he passed the line of scrimmage, he punted away. The announcer was saying he was just confused. Dude, he ran for 25 yards downfield and then punted it. It was like watching Australian rules football or something.
He thought he was playing rugby. I mean, it was kind of funny. I mean, the football awareness quotient there in the kid's head was a little off.
Oh, here's a great one.
When I saw that, I laughed out loud. Sorry.
Here's a great one here. Dan says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law, invest with JC as long as you don't have to subtract 32.
Oh, come on, man.
So basically, your opening game day streak goes back to the start of the Steve Spurrier era, JC.
Okay. Oh my God. Well, listen. I mean, I did remember watching. Who was it? Bernie Kosar or Vinny? I can't remember which one it was, but they brought their Hurricanes into this stadium, and Wilbur Marshall literally took off everybody's head that was wearing a white helmet. Almost as bad as when Jarvis Williams lit up Melvin Bratton, which was one of the greatest hits of all time that a Florida Gator has administered on a Miami Hurricane. But they did used to. I mean, they played Miami. early in the year. And, of course, the most recent time, I guess, was when Jeff Depps and Chris Rainey and those guys lit up the Hurricanes, and Randy Shannon. I guess it was 08, maybe 06, something like that. Yeah.
Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Darring Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker M. Parish, will provide you a fast, friendly, reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. Got JC right now. We'll have Josh Newman from the Salt Lake Tribune, I believe. We got a question here from Chris.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about Tennessee after seeing them play? I know Ball State is not the best in the world, but what do you think? They're explosive on offense. Hendon Hooker is extremely accurate with the football. They got two or three receivers that are legit. I don't know how good they are defensively. We'll see.
Well, it's like you said, that game at Pittsburgh is going to be must-see television. I'm impressed. Pittsburgh, they're very aggressive on defense. I love their coach. I guess Slovis will get better. He hasn't really. I don't know. I think it's a good football team, man. I mean, but I think Purdue is a good football team, and I think Penn State's improved too. That Joey Porter Jr. on the corner, he's a first-round draft pick. So,
he is
so
sure.
Penn State, So listen, I guess Pittsburgh is, what I couldn't believe, QB, and you tell me if you believe this, but they said that crowd last night was the largest attendance figure in Pittsburgh sports history, and it's hard for me to believe that they had more people at that stadium than any Steelers game. I mean,
Yeah, that is surprising. Now what they could have done though, JC, is how they do for the Florida Georgia game. They bring in extra seating.
Yeah,
they could have easily done that because you're going to get more people to watch that than a pro game.
Well, I mean,
especially you got to remember they hadn't played in 11 years.
That's right. Now, listen, West Virginia brought 30,000 fans. Speaking of bringing fans, I also read where Florida State has sold 30,000 tickets, or they're bringing 30,000 fans to New Orleans. That game Sunday night, to me, is the hardest game to predict, along with maybe the Florida game, because, FSU's already played a game, although it was more like a scrimmage, and we have no idea what Jaden Daniels and LSU's going to do. But I think that could be really one of the better games this weekend to watch on Sunday night.
Well, there's two components to that game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
A, I think Brian Kelly's the better coach. And two, LSU's got a better roster. Now, that doesn't mean anything because we've talked all summer long about Florida's got a better roster than Utah. It doesn't play, but LSU's got better players than Florida State. Let me read this Facebook Live here. This is a good question from Scott. He says, Shane Billy mentioned he likes to meet with his QBs during the week's install and go over what the QB likes. Did the HBC do that with you? Any good guy that calls plays sits down with his quarterbacks. Doesn't matter if you're the starter, the second, or third guy. You go through the plan and you ask each quarterback, what do you not like? And you make a note and you cross it off your call sheet. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think it's the greatest play in the world. When I coached, when I called plays, I did the same thing with my quarterbacks. And when they told me they didn't like this play, I go, are y'all crazy? That's a guaranteed touchdown. But if the quarterback, who's the guy playing, can't process it or just doesn't feel comfortable with the way it's designed or whatever, or maybe you've called it in practice and he missed the throws every time, okay? In their mind, they're not confident on that play. So to answer his question, any good coordinator or any good play caller sits down with their backup, their starter, maybe even their third guy and says, okay, if you're playing, what are your favorite plays and what are cross off the list plays? You must do that. You must do it.
All right. Well, I don't know. Go ahead.
Dan says it's FSU's first bowl game in years. That's how the fans are looking at it.
Well, listen, I give them credit, man. They're showing up to New Orleans. That's why wouldn't you go, right? I mean, it's a 6-hour drive, maybe. Go.
Yeah, and here was Billy's comment on that. He says it's important to have a pulse for what the quarterback likes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's more important than what you think, and there's no question about that. No question. All right, JC, let's let's go ahead and jump into our Peachland Dental picks. Gator Nation's number one choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. All right, what do you got on our list for this week? We've already picked the Illinois and the Indiana game. You know that, right?
Yeah, you've got Indiana -3. I've got Illinois +3. You're 0-7. I'm 4-3. All right, you got to get off the mat here, QB. Let's start it off. I've picked 7 or 8 games, and then we have what I think is a lock game that otherwise would not look at. But if you're out there making a bet or something, this is a game that I think you can absolutely put on your sheet, and it's not really one that you would think of as one of our highlighted games, but I'll give it to you anyway. And that is to start us off with I'll tell you that one here in a minute. The first game, though, is Cincinnati and Arkansas, QB. Cincinnati and Arkansas, the Bearcats lost a lot of players last year off that defense. They're getting 7. They don't have Desmond Ritter. You've got Arkansas, who I think head coach Steve Spurrier or old ball coach Steve Spurrier really likes this year in the West, and because I heard him say it. So Arkansas laying 7, and I'm going to take Arkansas at home with KJ Jefferson and the boys. I know that Trey, whatever his name is not playing. He graduated, but I'm taking Arkansas laying 7. What's his name?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Hogs because I think Cincinnati's going to be solid for the American, but they did lose a lot of good players to the National Football League.
They did.
Real quick, Devin says on Facebook Live, and by the way, we haven't fixed our by Monday we'll have the Titan MRI text line fixed. He says Utah isn't even the best team in Utah.
Well, I would disagree with that.
Well, he says Gators by 14.
Treylon Burks is the guy I'm talking about, Arkansas. Gators will not win by 14, and Utah is the best team in Utah, and it's not close. He's talking about the Aggies of Utah State or BYU. I don't know which one. It doesn't matter. I think Utah would beat them both, and I certainly think that Utah State is better than folks give them credit for, but they're not on the level as the team you're going to see on Saturday night. I don't know why people think Utah's going to come in here and get well, I guess I do know why people think Utah's going to come in here and get buried. But I think you're heading for extreme disappointment.
Yeah, real quick before we move on to the Peachland Dental picks, sometimes the text line's working, sometimes it's not. So anyway, this is from an anonymous texter. Says, guys, the Utah announcer posted on Twitter yesterday that they are bringing up to 20,000 to the Swamp. Strickland said on Sports Scene they only got 45. So, yeah, they only got 45 tickets sent to the school that were sold.
4,500.
What did I say?
45.
Yeah, 4,500. But I'm sure they purchased, stuff from Ticketmaster. But they don't have 20,000 coming. No, I bet there'll be about 5,000 to 6,000 would be my guess.
What was the story about the restaurant? Buying out the restaurant? What was that?
They have rented part of Coach Spurrier's restaurant.
Part of it, yeah. Okay. It's not going to be the headquarters of the Utah Utes on Saturday, though, right?
I don't know, but you think Coach cares as long as they're spending money?
Right. Yeah, no. And same with Freddie. I mean, they're going to be cooking and shoving. I get it. All right. Well, so we've got Arkansas both. They do miss Treylon Burks, but they got the quarterback. They're very physical. I like Arkansas. That Pittsburgh game last night, by the way, QB, was physical. It was hard hitting, a lot of targeting going on. All right, here's the second one, and I know Georgia shouldn't have much to worry about playing literally at home, but Oregon's catching 17, and good handicappers don't necessarily look at the teams; they look at the numbers. Numbers are what people bet on. So, that's what I've heard anyway. So in this case, Oregon's getting 17 points, and that seems like a lot to me. I know Georgia is Georgia. They lost a lot of really good players to the draft, but they're bringing back a lot of good players too. So it's hard for me to see Georgia not winning this game, but I think 17 is a lot and sets up for a backdoor. So I'm going to take Oregon.
I figured you would. I'm going to take Georgia. 17 is 17 for a reason.
True.
Because I think people are like looking at Oregon. Look, Bo Nix stinks. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's going to come in here and they're going to clobber him. I think Georgia will sputter around a little bit, but I think they'll win the game like 27 to
9.
7. 27 to 7.
27-7. Okay, because you were doing the math in your head.
I was. I almost said 27-10. I'll be like, well, damn,
no,
that won't be a winner.
All right, Miami of Ohio is also catching, in this case, 16.5 at Kentucky. We'll see the Wildcats here next week. Big expectations on Kentucky for this year. This game sets up to me a lot like the way the Tennessee game did, with the exception is I don't think Kentucky can score like Tennessee, and I think Miami's better than Ball State. So I'm going to take the points again and take the 16.5.
Miami, Ohio. Yeah, we talked with Mike Morgan about this. Miami, Ohio, I think, has a lot of their players back.
Yeah, they're not terrible.
I'm just going to be different than you. I'll go with Kentucky. What is the line?
Well, that's not helped you thus far. The 16.5 QB.
Okay.
All right, let's go with a game that's in what they call up on the hill. And I think this is an overshadowed game that could be one of the best of the weekend. And that would be your North Carolina Tar Heels and the Appalachian State Mountaineers. And I
know who I got, and I don't even know what the line is.
It's UNC -1.
UNC? Okay. I'll take the Mountaineers of Appalachian State.
Wow. Okay, going with the home team. Mississippi State at home.
Who did you take?
I'm taking North Carolina -1. I think they'll win. Mississippi State is at home. Another big spread here. I thought Memphis would probably have a tighter number than this, but Mississippi State's favored by 16.5. Who do you like?
Wow. What happened to Memphis?
I guess they lost a bunch of players, but that's a big number for me.
That's a big number, and it's that. I mean, they ain't dumb. So
no.
Memphis usually a pretty good team. Mississippi State got screwed at Memphis last year. I'll take the Dogs at home.
Okay, I got the Dogs as well, QB. We go on a few more here. Utah State is the team I just mentioned. Not a bad team. I think they won something like 11 games or 10 games last year. Did you know that, QB? Did you know that Utah State won all those games? Anyway,
yeah, they're good. They're a good squad.
Well, they're catching 41.5 against Alabama. I think when the score is 35-0, Alabama will put all their players on the sideline because they've got Texas next week, and that's why I've got Utah State covering the 41.5 QB.
Okay. I just it doesn't matter. I'm taking the Crimson Tide.
Okay. Here's a great game. Go ahead.
I mean, I watched Utah State last week. They struggled with UConn. UConn ran it down their throat most of the game.
Yeah.
Didn't look good. Every game is different, though, but we'll see. I'll take Bama.
All right. Ohio State, let's see, laying 17. I think we're all thinking about how explosive Ohio State's going to be offensively. I think we're also forgetting that Notre Dame somehow is the 5th-ranked team in the country, according to the AP poll. There's a reason for that. Everybody thinks Notre Dame has players. I don't know. Marcus Freeman, I don't know what he's got to offer. This is kind of a guess, but I'm going to take the points again. It's all about numbers for me, and I'm going to take the 17.
Yeah, I'm taking Ohio State. I don't think Notre Dame has a prayer in this game.
Well, they don't have to win it, QB, to win this game.
I think they get blasted.
Blasted. And you say that because of Ohio State?
Ohio State is that good, and Notre Dame's a question mark. Notre Dame, this right here is what happens to Notre Dame when they go play in the 14 playoff.
That's right.
This is one of those games. If people look at the line when they played Alabama for the national title, when they played in this playoff game, they're getting all these points, and they just get humiliated. Well, I think that happens in the horseshoe.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I get it.
But again, I'm a guy who ain't picked a winner. So,
all right. Here's my bonus pick before we get to the 2 Florida teams. My bonus pick that I think you got to love is the Houston Cougars laying 4.5 at San Antonio, the Roadrunners. Everybody loves the road. Everybody loves the Roadrunners. I'm sorry. Houston played really good defense last year. I bet nobody really knew that. Won a bunch of games, including their bowl game. I'm laying the 4.5. I love Houston in this game. This is my bonus. Go get them, JC.
This is your pick of the week?
Well, it's one of those picks that I pulled out of the lineup that I don't think people are really looking hard at.
Well,
and I just think it's a bad number. I'm going to jump on Houston in this game.
Well, if the Roadrunners have their quarterback and their tailback back.
Right. Yeah.
I like the Roadrunners at home.
Okay.
They're going to have the Alamo Dome packed.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. All right, here we go. Sunday night, big one. We talked about this. Florida State is only catching 3. Who is LSU going to start? They're going to start Jaden Daniels. This was Arizona State's former starting quarterback. who brought his mother to the locker room every weekend and pissed off a lot of guys. But I'm going to take LSU in the Dome. I can't see. I'm not a believer yet in Florida State. Now, if they play this game close or win it, I'll start to believe. But I just don't.
Yeah, I was not impressed with Florida State against Duquesne. They looked like the same team to me.
Yeah.
I don't think LSU is going to be great, but I think LSU is going to be coached better.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to have better players.
All right. And that brings us to the weekend. Biggest game for all of us here is Utah. The line's gone up to 3 from 2.5. I think about 3 months ago, Florida was actually.
I can't pick the Utah-Florida game there.
I know you're the announcer, so I'm going to give you guys the pick, so everybody can pick on me after I tell you, and then I'll give you the score. So since QB is the voice of the game or the color commentator for the University of Florida, obviously he's going to be Kirk Herbstreit right here and pass on this. But I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You won't like it, but I think Utah is bringing a very good football team into this building. The Gators are too much of an unknown for me still at this point. I will root for Florida to win. I want Gainesville to be a happy town. I want the Gators to be a very good team this year. I want them to be improved. I just got to see it first. So I'm going to take Utah. I'm going to lay the 3, and I think actually the score could be something in the neighborhood of 34 to 17. I just don't think Florida is ready to go. I just don't think Florida has the players yet. It's not to say they won't win. I just don't think they'll win, and I think the biggest problem for Florida is going to be on the defensive line, and I think Utah will run the ball, and that's going to open it up for Cam Rising, who is a very good quarterback. It's hard for me to see Florida winning, but this is college football. The crowd's going to be into it. The emotions are going to be high. Anthony's going to have to win the game by himself, I think, almost. And until I see otherwise, I hate saying it, but I think Utah kills Florida.
Well, they're a good football team. I mean, next week's a good football team too, so we'll see. There's one other game that I think is going to be very interesting, and I don't know why. I have a feeling Ole Miss is going to take a step back. I don't know why.
You have been saying that. You've been saying that from the beginning.
So I think Troy could give them some fits this week.
So let me see.
We'll see.
So that's your that's going to be like the QB bonus. The QB bonus pick like Houston is for me. You got Troy. Okay. All right.
And they're getting like 3 or 4 touchdowns. I don't know. I mean, Ole Miss lost Jeff Levy, who's their play caller.
Yes, they did.
They lost their whole backfield. And they still can't stop anybody. So we'll see.
No, it's a good. Listen, I've heard that. I agree with folks jumping on. Ole Miss is back right now, not really believing yet. I just think Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing. I think he'll find players, and you'll see players that you haven't seen yet take over. And I don't know Troy. I don't know anything about him. I have heard though, like you, that they're much improved from last year. They've got athletes all over the place. Blah blah blah. I think it's a tough assignment to go and beat Ole Miss. I'll tell you
another interesting game.
You could be right
because they're going Division I. James Madison is now Division I football.
They are. Oh,
I believe they are. I think they're in the Sun Belt now, and so I think this is their first time in Division I football. They're playing at home to Middle Tennessee State. So
let me ask you one quick question, QB. Clemson and Georgia Tech is the other game on Labor Day.
I don't even know what it is. I would lay 3 touchdowns with Clemson.
Well, that's what they're laying. We'll talk about that on Monday after the weekend. I'm just looking forward to the weekend. I know you're looking forward to getting in the box with the Sean Kelly, and I know we're all looking forward to seeing 80,000 fans, 85,000 fans finally letting off some steam and having a great night. I just wish it was Utah State coming in here and not Utah. That's all I would say.
It's going to be fun, though. Mark asked, what does my shirt say? It says, "Scared money don't make money." Scared money.
I got you. Where did you pick that up at? In the gift shop?
I got people that give me things, JC.
I've got to meet these people, man. I like it. Well, have fun.
If you need a scared money don't make money hoodie, see, it's a thin hoodie.
That's nice.
Let me know.
Yeah. Give me real quick before you let me go. What is your day? How does your day, just real quick, how does your day construct from, say, 9 o'clock in the morning until it's a late kick, 7 o'clock? What's your day look like? You've got shows to do, or you got to do call-ins?
No, so
what do you got to do?
So I don't have to be on campus until So it's a 7 o'clock kick, 3 o'clock. Steve Russell and I do a pregame show in the bookstore with all the all the gear. We do that for an hour, and then
at 3 o'clock,
3 o'clock till 4, and then I go and see some folks, and then I don't have to be in the press box until an hour before.
So
I go up there and I go hobnob with all the pressers, all the media boys, eat a little bit, and then I'll walk into the booth at 6:30, 30 minutes before kickoff.
You get to hobnob with the fans and whatnot before the game, after the show.
Yeah. I mean, my job it ain't no different than anybody sitting in the stands. I just have a headset on and telling people who can't see the game what's going on.
And you get a direct deposit put into your checking account on Monday. That's a good deal. I like that one. That's part of it too, QB. So good for you, man. That's exciting. That's exciting.
All right, JC. Well, we're gonna head out to Salt Lake City and talk to Josh Newman on the Titan MR hotline. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
You got it.
We're gonna take a quick time out. Come back. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Escape Apology, Sushi Hana, Regal Cinemas, Kilwins, Le Macaron, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, where every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 2:30 you can get the hottest brunch in town. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. We're now going to head to the Titan MR hotline to Salt Lake City, and we're joined by beat writer of the Utah Utes, Josh Newman. Good morning, Josh. How are you, buddy?
Shane, how are you?
I'm doing well. Very unique game we got going on here. First of all, what's the vibe like in Salt Lake City about the Utes traveling to Gainesville?
People are excited. This is not your general average Utah opener. I mean, in most years, not all years, but in most years, Utah is happy to play, in FCS school, a group of five school. But this is, stepping up in class, so to speak, right? Traveling 2 time zones, going to play at Florida in the swamp, SEC country. So this is not your typical deal here. And, just looking at this Utah program, I mean, listen, 3 of the last 4 games last year were, they beat Oregon here in Salt Lake City when Oregon was ranked number 3. They beat Oregon again 13 days later to win the Pac-12. And then they played in this, epic Rose Bowl against Ohio State. So, there has never been this much excitement around this Utah football program. And that is only being, exasperated by the fact that, they're opening the season ranked number 7. Some think that they can be a legitimate college football playoff contender. So, yeah, you ask Joe average Utah fan, I think people are very, very excited to see this game get played on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't follow Utah football closely, but have they ever played in an SEC stadium before?
Boy, I don't have it in front of me. They have not played. The last SEC team they played they beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in 2009. Right. But I believe the last time they actually played in an SEC stadium, I believe was at Tennessee. but that was way back in like 1984. All right.
Okay.
It's not every year that they're traveling 2 time zones. I don't think they've played in the Eastern time zone since, it's been like 9 or 10 years. This is not a common occurrence.
So we've heard the reports. Obviously, they've pumped up the heat, doing everything that crowd noise, everything they possibly can to prepare for it. Aren't they coming out a couple of days early to try to get acclimated to the weather?
Yeah, so they're flying out Thursday, but in fairness, they're not flying out technically to acclimate for the weather. It's just common protocol that when they travel to the Eastern time zone, they do it on Thursday for a Saturday game. Now, of course, coming out here, yes, they are going to attempt to acclimate, but you brought up trying to pump up the heat in the indoor facility, practicing outside at the hottest point of day. It's very hot this summer in Salt Lake City, so they're generally practicing 2:30 in the afternoon when it's like 99 degrees outside. But there's only a certain point or a certain level of acclimation that you can reach. Okay, they're only on the ground in Gainesville for about 48 hours before kickoff. So your body only has so much time to get acclimated, and quite frankly, it's not enough time to get fully acclimated. And yeah, the more we talk about this and the more people you talk to, I've quoted a couple of doctors in stories that I've written, the humidity and the heat, it's going to be a factor. So, they're going to have to deal with that, of course.
What's crazy is, I played in the league a long time, and obviously when you travel across country, you go because of the time change.
Right.
But I've never once heard in my years in the National Football League, whether it was going to play, obviously the altitude, going to play in Denver, but you never hear about teams on the West Coast when they go play the Dolphins or the Buccaneers worrying about the heat and humidity. It just seems like you hear about that in college football for some reason. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how. I mean, it's going to be hot as hell. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's going to be miserable. I hope your fans are hydrating because they're the ones that it's going to affect the most.
Look, I'm a native of the Northeast. I grew up in New York. I spent time in New Jersey. I understand what an East Coast late August day is like. The humidity, it's miserable. Once you get to a certain level of humidity, it doesn't matter anymore. Once you get up to 85, 90% humidity, you are sweating, you are drenched, you are uncomfortable. And then obviously we're playing a football game here, so you're factoring in they're wearing pads, they're wearing helmets. The temperature on the field is going to be, whatever it is, 15 or 20 degrees warmer than the general air. So everybody's going to have to deal with the same things. And yes, there are some Utah fans that want to discount this whole humidity thing as just a non-factor. And they're pointing out, Utah is coming from the mountains down to sea level. That is an advantage to Utah. It's going to be a factor. I mean, that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, it is, and it's going to be a factor. I don't know how you prepare for altitude when the Gators travel there next year. But all right, let's talk about the Utes real quick. Offensively, Cam Rising steps in and gets it going last year. Just let the Gator people watching my podcast just give us a brief synopsis about the Utah offense.
Yeah, so the Utah offense, it was electric down the stretch last season. It's generally a run-heavy offense behind a good offensive line. No matter what happens with Utah in terms of graduation or like the NFL draft or transferring, they will always produce an offensive line and they will always have a running back. Okay, so last season you had Tavion Thomas at running back, 1,100 yards, 21 touchdowns. They ran the ball about 60% of the time. But then you had Rising coming in, and he brought a different element to the offense. Quarterback is generally not a position of huge strength, within Utah's program, but it was last season. Again, they ran the ball 60% of the time, but Rising was really good with what they asked him to do, right? Just protect the ball, don't turn it over, make some throws, right? They weren't going down the field a ton, but in terms of short stuff, intermediate stuff, he was outstanding. And we saw that especially in the last 4 or 5 games when Utah was putting up a ton of points on Oregon. They scored 45 points in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. So where does the passing game go? A major topic of conversation early in training camp was the fact that, Rising was coming off major shoulder surgery last year. He was healthy enough to play, but the shoulder itself was only like 80%. Okay, so they weren't really taking shots down the field. The shoulder is back to 100%. So what can they do in terms of going down the field? Okay, they have two legitimate pass catching tight ends in Brand Keithy and Dalton Kincaid. But what do you have on the outside? Okay, Devon Vele is a 6'4", kind of 220-pound guy who can go up and beat his guy one-on-one. He has shown flashes on the outside. Is he ready to take a step forward? Solomon Enos is another, older guy, been with the program. This is year 4, had 20 some odd catches for 300 yards last year. Can he take a big step forward and be that guy for Rising? So, it's really, again, this Utah team is forever under Kyle Whittingham is predicated on the run and establishing the run. Okay. And they're going to do that against Florida, or at least try to. But this offense, with Rising healthier, with the two tight ends, with what you think you have on the outside, this can be one of the more dynamic Utah offenses maybe ever, just because of what Rising is capable of. He certainly did not hit his ceiling last year.
Yeah, the tight end position is one that really concerns me as a Gator fan. Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Josh Newman here from the Salt Lake Tribune. He's the Utah beat writer. All right, defensively, when I think of Utah, I think defense because of the head coach. He's a defensive-minded guy. Just talk to us a little bit. I've had people tell me, Ohio State threw for 500 something yards on their secondary. Well, Ohio State does that to every secondary. Just talk a little bit about the defense that Utah has.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State did throw for 500 some odd yards, but I mean, in fairness, they were down to their 4th and 5th cornerbacks because of injuries, and they took a running back and started him at cornerback. Whatever. I digress. Anyway, the big question mark right now with Utah's defense going into this game is that linebacker. Okay, Devin Lloyd gone to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nephi Sewell, their other outstanding linebacker, also gone to the NFL. So what do you do there? The linebacker room, at least in my opinion, the linebacker room is the most talented room within the defense, the deepest room. But the thing is, Lloyd and Sewell were such stalwarts for 2 and 3 years that all the talent behind them just hasn't had a chance to play a ton. So what do you do there? Mo Diabate, right, the Florida transfer that all the Florida fans know, he's now at Utah. 37 games played, 17 starts for the Gators. You pencil him in at middle linebacker for Saturday. A kid by the name of Karenny Reed played well. Okay, he's a second-year guy, played well a couple of times last year when Lloyd was hurt. He was suspended for a half for targeting. So Karenny Reed, they expect big things out of him. So it's Diabate, it's Karenny Reed. And then that third spot, young kid by the name of Lander Barton, okay, 18-year-old freshman, 4-star kid from here in Utah, crown jewel of this latest recruiting class, has the pedigree. Both his brothers play in the NFL, both played for Kyle Whittingham. So lot of hype surrounding Lander Barton as like this next stud linebacker for Utah. And look, I'm very intrigued to see what Barton can do, because again, this opener, this is not, your typical opener where you're playing an FCS school and you can kind of settle in and figure out the depth. Lander Barton is getting thrown right into the deep end, okay, against Florida, in the environment, in the heat. So, so we'll see. So, that's linebacker. And then again, one of the major strengths of Utah's defense year in and year out, especially the last 3 or 4 years, is the secondary. And like I said, going into that Rose Bowl last year, the secondary was very banged up, but now they're very healthy. Okay, all those guys that were hurt are back. So you have Clark Phillips at one cornerback, highest rated recruit in Utah history, has lived up to those expectations, preseason All-American. JT Brockton on the other side, all Pac-12 kid in 2020 during the COVID season. He missed most of last season with a shoulder issue. He's back healthy. So it's Phillips and Broughton and Malone Mataele at the nickel, another veteran guy. And then, the back line, your secondary is, veteran pieces, guys who have played major snaps, went to a Rose Bowl. Cole Bishop is a true sophomore at one safety spot, really came on last season late. RJ Hubert is a is another, veteran guy, has played in 2 or 3 Pac-12 championship games. He's had like a bit of an injury history, but he's looking healthy now. That situation in safety was kind of 3 guys for 2 spots during camp. It's going to be Bishop and Hubert, but the third guy is no slouch. Clayton Isbell transferred in from Illinois State, 2-time All-American at the FCS level. So defense is looking pretty stout. I mean, I think there's a couple of questions specifically at linebacker, but there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. And look, another matchup, right, that we should be fascinated by is this secondary, a strength of Utah's defense, having to deal with Anthony Richardson, right, the very fine quarterback at Florida.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's no question about it. I think a lot of people, the thing that surprises me the most about Utah is I can't remember the last time a college football team had so many starters returning. And on a good football team, sometimes you have starters returning on a 3-9 team, but
right,
they're a very good team. Last thing, Josh, before we let you go, what does Utah have to do to win in the Swamp?
They have to establish themselves up front. The offensive line, you look at the depth chart, and if you're trying to make like sweeping judgments based on, heights and weights, Utah is not overly big across that offensive line. It's gonna be interesting, just given the size and the ferocity and the physicality that that Florida's defensive line appears to be ready to play with. 60% of Utah's offensive line starters from last year are back. There's been some shuffling, right? The right tackle last season, Braden Daniels, is moving over to left tackle to protect Rising's backside. So the 60% is back, but then the other guys that you're trying to plug in, those are veteran pieces too. Okay, a new center in Paul Miley, he has game experience, has played in high leverage situations, and has played well. So again, offensive line is a position typically of strength, but in fairness, the last few years, Utah's offensive line has started slowly. Okay, they started very slow last year, contributed heavily to starting the season 1 and 2. There's no time for that. Like if Utah's offensive line is not, together and is not playing well on Saturday, it's going to be very difficult for Utah to win this game, I think.
Yeah. Well, Josh, we appreciate you taking the time. Are you going to come to the Swamp?
I'm on a plane Thursday morning, and I'm looking forward to soaking in. I've never been to an SEC stadium town game. I'm looking forward to kind of soaking in my first experience in an SEC town for a game environment.
Well, I'll look for you up in the press box, my man. You'll really enjoy it. It's a tremendous atmosphere, one of the greatest places in all of college football. Let everybody know if they want to read up on the Utes before they roll into town, how they can check out your work.
I appreciate that, Shane. I link everything on my Twitter handle. I am at Joshua_Newman. If you want to check out the website, as you said, I work for the Salt Lake Tribune. That is at sltrib.com.
Safe travels, my friend, and we'll see you Saturday night.
Shane, I appreciate you.
Yep, that's Josh Newman. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. We're going to come back and wrap up this Friday edition. We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co.,
coming out of
Rose
break,
Ogra, State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
up today's program. Hope you enjoyed it. I think the Gators are going to play well. I think the crowd will affect it. Hopefully we can get some big plays in special teams. I think we're much better than them in special teams. We need to protect the football, and our front seven on D has to come to play. We will talk to you and recap all of college football on Monday. Have a great weekend, folks. Take care.